Hello everyone, this is Allie from Stuck on You Crochet, and today we're going to learn how to do the puff stitch. So if you are joining us for the stitch along, then this is block 3. You can see here I've got block 1, the loop stitch, block 2, where we made our checkerboard with tapestry crochet, and for block 3 we're going to work the puff stitch. If you're not doing the Stitchwork Scarf and you are just here to learn how to do the puff stitch, then this tutorial will work for you too. But I'm going to be sharing the instructions specifically according to the Stitchwork Scarf. So for our puff stitch today, I'm going to use a 5mm hook and a single strand of yarn. I'm using a bright yellow here. And at the end of block 2, we marked off our last stitch with a stitch marker. So if you did that, you can take your stitch marker out, and just like we did at the end of block 1, we're actually going to pull this last stitch out so that we can switch to our new color. So I'll finish that single crochet stitch, and then to finish that stitch, I'm going to put my new color on my hook here. Then I'll chain 1, and I'm going to turn my project over. So to make puff stitches, you're working multiple loops into the same space, and this creates raised bumps off your work. So this is a little bit of a yarn eater, so make sure that you have plenty of yarn in whatever color you're choosing to use. So once I turn over, and you see I have a lot of ends here, so it's going to be a little confusing for this first stitch. But for my first stitch, and this is just specifically for the Stitchwork Scarf, I'm going to do a half double crochet stitch into that very first space. So I've got my half double crochet stitch, and then I'm going to start my puff stitch in the next space. So to work a puff, you're going to work, like I said, multiple loops into the same stitch. And for the Stitchwork Scarf, we're going to work until we have a total of 9 loops on our hook. It's also pretty common to work 5 or 7 loops on the hook, so if you feel like your puff is just too bulky, then you can do the repeats just a less number of times than what I'm going to do here. So to work a puff stitch, we're going to yarn over and then insert our hook into the space. Then we're going to yarn over and draw up a loop. So now you can see we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to do the exact same thing. Yarn over, put your hook into the same space, yarn over, and draw up a loop. Now you see we have 5. Yarn over, put the hook in the same space, yarn over, and draw up a loop. This will be 7. And then we'll do it one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook into the space, yarn over, and draw up a loop. So now you have a lot of loops on your hook here. If you count them out, you'll see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 works with single-stranded yarn. I did also make this scarf in double-stranded, and it's pretty bulky. So if you need to do 7, if you're double-stranding your scarf, then that's fine. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 1 here, And I have 14 puffs, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I have 2 stitches left. So I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and I'm going to work a half double crochet stitch into that last space. So when you finish row 1, you should look like this. And here we're on the back side of our work. So as we turn it around, then we'll be on the front side. So now we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to turn the project over. And here's the front side with our puffs popping off the front. So now we're going to work back across our row of puffs, but as we work the next puffs, we're going to work into these spaces in between. So we have a chain 3 here, and now working into the chain space from the prior row. So in between these 2 puffs, we're going to work a puff, and then chain 1. So as we go back across, you'll see that the puffs of row 2 are going to be worked in between the puffs of row 1. So you can continue like that all the way across row 2. And you'll see that in this row, we're only going to have 13 puffs instead of 14 puffs. So for this specific pattern, the rows will alternate with 14 puffs in the odd numbered rows and 13 puffs in the even numbered rows. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 2 here, and I have 13 puffs, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. And now I need to work a half double crochet stitch. So I'm going to work this in the top of the half double crochet stitch from the row prior. So you'll skip the stitch that is the top of the puff, and then work your half double crochet into the top of the half double crochet from the row prior. And that will finish off your row. So once you finish row 2, then you're going to chain 2 and turn your project over. Now from here on out, the rows will start to repeat themselves in an alternating fashion. So for row 3, we're going to put our first puff into the space between this half double crochet stitch and the first or the last puff stitch of the row prior. So you're still working into those spaces in between, but the first puff of this row is going to go in between that half double crochet and the puff. Chain 1, and then just like we did in the row before, you're working your puffs right between those puffs of the row prior. And since this is an odd number row, we'll have 14 puffs total in this row. So here I'm getting close to the end of row 3, and I've got 13 puffs here, and I need one more in this row. So you can see in the row below, we started with a chain 3, which was our turning chain. This last puff is going to go into that turning chain space. So it's a little bit different than the rows prior. So you'll place that last puff in the chain space, and then at the end of row 3, we're going to chain 3 and turn. Now, since this is a even numbered row, we'll work row 4. We're going to put the first puff in between these two puffs, and we'll work 13 puffs across and finish this row with a half double crochet stitch in the top of the half double from the row prior. So you'll continue in that fashion, and you are going to work all the way up through 13 rows. So continue these puffs until you have a total of 13 rows. Since you're ending on an odd row, you should have 14 puffs across that final row. So we'll work those and then come back when we're at the end of block 3. Okay, so once you get to the end of row 13, you should have 13 rows of puffs, and in this last row, you should end with 14 puffs total. So you can count those out and make sure that you have the right count. And then on this final stitch for block 3, just like we did for the others, we're going to pop our stitch marker in there, and that will hold our place so that we're ready for block 4. So in block 4, if you're following along with the pattern, we actually are going to continue in this same color. So don't cut your yarn after this block if you want to continue with the same color instructions as are written in the Stitchwork Scarf. So leave your yarn attached, and I will be back in a few days with block 4.